Snowmobiling. My all-time favorite recreational activity. I've loved it since I was a kid, and I love it to this day. I picked up back about 2002, I think it was, a machine that was ideal for my style of riding. And that's the machine you're going to see in this video. So I think it's important aspect of the story to understand the type of riding I like to do is trail riding. And that's what my machine is set up for. I've got from the factory performance shocks that make a really nice, comfy ride, even over most washboards. I got a short track, and that thing it moves. It's comfortable. It moves. Low center of gravity, and I like to get out and take a loop or two, and while I'm at it I might try to set the time record for that particular loop. I like to get going while I'm out there. Now, my machine isn't ideal for riding in untracked snow or hill climbing, although it does do it, and it has defied even my own expectations while doing it. And if anyone's going to praise its ability, it's going to be me. But I'm well aware that it has some shortfalls in the way it's set up. But I can do some of it if conditions are right. So the event you're about to see took place on December 24th, Christmas Eve, 2020. I was riding with my brother and my nephews in Ant Canyon, just outside of Grace, Idaho. And we had come to this junction about 11 miles back. I know that because I had set my trip to kind of keep track of how many miles we rode that day. And so we were about 11 miles in and come to this junction, and there's this bowl, and so my nephews are off there getting used to timber sleds is kind of their new thing, and so they're off playing in some of this snow, and I eye this hill, and I think, oh, that's perfect. I'm going to go climb that. So I head for it, and because of the way my machine's set up for me to not get stuck really badly, my key for me and my machine is to maintain speed and momentum. So I get to the bottom of this hill, I start climbing, everything is going textbook, and I'm making this climb, it's going great, and there's no video of what actually happened, but here is the immediate aftermath. We got trouble in River City. I just hit this rock coming up this hill. I don't know how fast I was going, but I was moving pretty good. Got coolant and some piece completely ripped off. I landed all the way up there. Caught the handlebars with my sternum pretty good. Knocked the wind out of me. Whew. So, if you've never experienced having something completely change your trajectory almost instantaneously, it's almost impossible to describe that feeling. The jolt, the surprise. I'm not opposed to leaving the ground on any sort of vehicle, but I like to have some control and some planning related to it. And when it catches you off guard like this, it is so surprising. The distance where I landed from where I hit that rock, at least 40 feet. And so again, going back to how fast I was going, we don't know. My track was probably spinning, so my speedometer wouldn't have been accurate even if I had looked at it. But to be going the direction I was and literally have my course of direction changed and still cover that much ground should tell you that I was booking. So we assessed the situation after I caught my breath. So I don't know what that piece is, but it ripped it right off the bottom right here. This is going to be expensive. You can see where the rock went right along there. Just tore it right off, whatever it was.
Look at the rock you hit.
It was obvious that it was going to have to be towed out, so we hooked it up to one of my brother's machines and got it down to the bottom of the hill, but realized the track was not spinning. And so we looked at it again, and it was at that point that we discovered that the drive shaft had also been bent, because that tip of that rock had gone right there between the skis and had hit right where my radiator connects, and then next impact was the drive shaft. And so the track would rotate a little ways, but when it would get to where that bend was, it didn't have enough give to continue to rotate around. So we tried loosening the track, but just couldn't get it loose enough to make a difference. And so it was impossible to tow it out at that point, because it would be trying to tow it with the brake on, and just that much dead weight was not going to happen. So really, our only real alternative was to leave it there, which we did. And my brother suggested, he said, I've got a sled at home that I think we can bring back and we can put underneath it to basically slide it out of here. And so so we went back to his warehouse, and we looked at the sled, and it was a nice one of those black kind of hefty sleds for going down hills. I wasn't worried about its durability, but the sides were so tall. I was concerned that once we got the weight of my machine in it, that it was going to be trying to tip forward, and that we were going to be fighting that scoop on the front all the way out. And I anticipated that that would be a frustrating and slow process. So I went home and spent Christmas Eve with the wheels in my brain kind of churning. And I woke up in the morning and I had an idea to do. So I go out in the garage, and I found a 1/2-inch sheet of plywood that was still the regular 8 feet long, but was 10 inches wide. I grabbed some 2x4s and cut them up a little bit and attached them to the board, and had essentially a makeshift sled. We drilled just a couple of 1-inch holes all along the side, which we did end up using with a little bit of like some paracord or something to tie that on. And I didn't get any video of towing it out, of it in motion, but this is essentially what we came up with that got us out. It was a success. I improvised, it looks like I think 1/2-inch plywood, 8 feet long. Put a 2x4 at that end to lock in the track. We ended up not using it up here, but lifted, pulled up the front so as to not let it nosedive in the snow. And brother said it pulled like a dream. Now, when I took that video, we were already back at the parking lot and had already disconnected from the tow sled. But just if you're interested what we ended up doing, one of my concerns was once we had my machine on the wood or on whatever we were towing out, at that point there was no longer any brake control on my sled, and I was worried about going down some of the hills we had to do to get back to the parking lot, about it sliding into the back of the tow sled. Now, I didn't want to ding up my hood and stuff like that, because my machine was already damaged enough at that point. No need to add to it. So we lashed bumper to bumper got it as tight as we could so that the towing machine, there was very little slack. And so it would be, the towing machine was basically everything, and my machine was essentially kind of like a trailer with a fixed tongue attached to the back of it. And then to make sure that the skis would track, we also tied them to the runners on the back, just so wherever the tow machine would go, the skis would track and follow, and essentially turn my machine into just a giant sled. And the other thing we wanted to do with the skis tracking themselves, is that meant that we could pull it out without somebody riding on my machine, and we could cut down the weight by that much. Now, in retrospect, that probably would have not been a big deal the way that it pulled out. Having somebody on that sled would not have changed things significantly, I don't think. But my brother was able to tow it out with that hookup, and he said it towed like a dream. He hardly noticed it was there, no significant issues. So you've seen the aftermath of the damage that my beloved snowmobile incurred. I personally did not come out unscathed. When we hit the rock and my snowmobile shot up, and my momentum kept me going forward, and I caught the handlebars right across my diaphragm sternum area, and I'm guessing that it is the brake reservoir that sits there on that left side that caught me right in the center of my left breast, that did most of the damage. It knocked the wind out of me. Kind of a funny side story to this is I'm sitting there literally hunched over trying to breathe, and my 15-year-old nephew radios from the bottom of the hill, "Yeah, I'm stuck. Can you come help me?" And he didn't say a name, but since he was looking my direction and I was kind of the only one within eyesight, I assume he was talking to me. And I radioed back to him, "You're going to have to wait for a few minutes. I'm still trying to catch my breath." And at that point was unaware of what the extent of the damage was to my machine or anything. And so I'm sitting there hunched over trying to breathe, and like 20 seconds later, he's back on the radio. "Yeah, I'm still waiting down here." So we had a good laugh about it, especially my brother, the next day at Christmas dinner. But the lack of patience at the time kind of did rub me the wrong way a little bit. Anyway, I was obviously sore the rest of that day. But what really surprised me was that night, where I really felt the pain was around my back, right at my spine. And what it felt like was that where my ribs, lock into my spine, it felt like a rib had literally been knocked out of joint. And I felt like I had an ice pick in my back. Like, it was a really sharp pain in one particular area, and it was right where I couldn't reach with anything. So, and if you've ever experienced rib injuries, you can relate to this. It hurt to breathe. It hurt to laugh. It hurt to cough. And the absolute worst part of it is sneezing is just absolute torture, especially one of those sneezes that starts to build up and you know it's coming and it's going to hurt and there's nothing you can do about it. It's absolutely terrible. So, anyway, I felt like that pretty much for about a week. And then on New Year's Eve, my brother-in-law was up for the festivities, and he is an excellent chiropractic physician. He used to be the team chiropractor for the Jazz during the Legends era, and he is really good at what he does. So I asked him, "Hey, can you check this rib like in my back that's really causing me some discomfort?" And He did some evaluation and acknowledged, man, you're really locked up, which was, no particular surprise. He tried to adjust me a couple different ways, and ultimately, part of it is that I kept like tensing up, and he kept telling me, relax, relax, and I'm trying, but I know what's coming, and I can't help it. So anyway, eventually, after several tries, he said, I got to have an adjusting table. And we used to have one at the house, a portable one. Um, and anyway, I looked around and I couldn't find it. It's been a couple minutes. And then he said, well, let me try a couple other things. And he pushed on the sides of my rib cage and said, how does that feel? It's like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no particular issue. And then he started pushing on my left side a couple of different areas, and fine. And then he hit that spot, and I cowled over, and he's like, okay, now what about right here? And he tried a couple different spots, and then he said, you know what, I think you're broken. That the pain is so localized, it seemed like to one or two particular ribs. He said, if you're not broken, you've definitely torn some cartilage and ligaments, and basically some separation, which I've had broken ribs, I've had separated ribs. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between the two. So anyway, and then he concluded by saying that the amount of torque he would have to put into that area to get anything to move with how locked up my muscles were, he said, I'm just gonna finish what started. And so he wasn't willing to pursue it any further, and I was debating whether the relief that I perceived would come was worth the intense pain that would come. So anyway, we mutually agreed to wait on any further adjustment. So with that said, where do things stand now? It's been about a month. The snowmobile has been parked in my mom's garage, and here are the options that I am facing. Everyone who can afford to go get a new machine is telling me it's time to get a new machine. I'm not in a position to do that, even to go get a used one. That should also tell you I am not in a position to be able to afford to get mine fixed. Not the parts, but what I perceive will be the cost of the labor. But I'm a pretty mechanically savvy person, and I have confidence that I can do the vast majority of the labor. So I've priced out the parts, and they are affordable based on the information I have right now. So here's some of my concerns, some of the unknowns, and what some of my options. So one of the best options would be to find a snowmobile that has blown a motor or something, and just try to get the body and transfer everything over. Now that sounds like a lot of work to me, just to move over, the track and all the steering and the skis and just, everything like that. And that's really my only hesitation with that particular plan. As it stands, what I need to do is obviously take off the track and get the drive shaft out of the way. And then it's going to be easier to cut out that bent portion and do a patch than to try to hammer it back to shape. That would be, I think, much faster and much more efficient to cut it out and patch it. To do that, that means that I'm going to have to get the motor out of the way as well. So I'm going to have to pull the motor, which once I've got the drive shaft out, isn't that much more to do. Here's my concern. The impact that drive shaft took to bend it has me concerned that on either side where it goes into the engine bay, the chain, there's a chain case on one side and then speedometer and stuff on the other side. I'm worried that there is some damage around there. Best case scenario is that it maybe damaged the bearings, but if it damaged that portion of the engine bay, or some people think that that's also part of the tunnel. I'm not sure what aspect would be considered, but where that drive shaft comes through, if there's damage to the body in that area, it's going to be near impossible to get that drive shaft and everything else to track correctly after that. So I would be forced at that point to find a replacement body. I do absolutely love that snowmobile, but anyway, that's where it's at. And as I get further information, I'll update this thread. Thanks for watching.